thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to Scooby Panel number 3. Today we're going to be talking about the art of Scooby-Doo. Before we get started, I do want you guys to introduce yourselves. So Wendy, we're going to start with you today.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy. I'm a commission artist and a Scooby-Doo collector, and I'm very excited for an art-related Scooby panel today.
Cameron?
Hi, I'm Cameron. I run the Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too fan page account, and I think everybody on here is an artist, so I'm going to say I'm a Scooby-Doo interior decorator.
Oh, yeah.
Not a Scooby-Doo collector. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, like I said, I run Scooby and Cam too, so it's very nice to meet all you, and I'm glad to be here.
Will.
Hi, thanks. I'm really glad to be here. So my name is Will Davenport. I run several social media accounts under the name Davenport Will Draw. I do a lot of different work for different projects, but I've been working on a Scooby-Doo reimagining of the classic villains for about a year, which, and I've been a Scooby fan for a while. My daughter and I are big fans. So that's what led me into that. And now I just find myself deeper and deeper into great Scooby discussions like this one.
Nice. And Trevor?
Well, I basically call myself an intuitive pop artist. I do a lot of things related to pop culture, and though my degree was in illustration and I do commissions, I enjoy meeting celebrities. I'll do artwork for them, and then I usually do 2 and let them pick one they like and then sign the other for me. So that's given me opportunity to use my art to say thank you to people whose work has meant a lot to me. But I've liked Scooby-Doo forever. You know, I am old enough, I guess, almost to be in the original. Well, I was 2 years old when it premiered, so Lord knows what TV mom put me down in front of, but I do remember. I love them pretty much dearly, and yeah, I'm not as immersed as you all are, there's been many incarnations I've ignored, but well, I mean, and I didn't mean it to sound as snotty as that did. But anyway, I'm just happy to be nominated. So.
Nice. And I'm Nikki Blake. I run ScoobyAddicts.com. So the first thing I want to start with is your favorite style of Scooby-Doo and why you like that style. Cameron, let's start with you.
Okay. So I would have to say I've been thinking about it a lot lately. You know, growing up, I grew up on Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And the Scooby-Doo Show. To me, it was just, you know, the art style is just so original. I mean, you know, like I said, it's just so much fun. You know, it's funny because when you go back and watch the cartoon, sometimes the artist will mess up on certain little things, you know, like Fred may walk by and his ascot may be like bright red, or Scooby-Doo may walk by and his collar may be a different color, or, you know, it's just, but to me, that's always been my favorites has always been the originals. Now, I know like over the years, you know, there's been like Mystery Incorporated and What's New and stuff like that. But the one thing I do love is when they do reincarnations is they do keep the same color types, like Daphne purple, Velma orange, Fred blue, Shaggy green, and Scooby, you know, having the brown and, you know, like I said, the turquoise dog collar. So like I said, to answer your question, I think the originals will have to be my favorite.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I really like the original. I pretty much compare everything to the original, which is bad because, you know, we have seen some Scooby series that are nothing like it.
Yes.
But just like you, I kind of like the mistakes. It's funny when, you know, Fred's head is backwards or Scrappy's head is missing. It's like, it's funny to see that. And you don't see it as much right now. But it is funny to see.
You know, I wonder if when back then when they were drawing and illustrating and, you know, doing these cartoons, I wonder if they did it on purpose or if they did it on accident. Because, you know, like I think it was on Twitter last night. I think it was Unmasked Podcast of Scooby-Doo. They posted a picture and it was from the Scooby-Doo show, and it was Scooby Dumb and Scooby-Doo, and they had their heads switched, and I was just like, I never got that. I never got that. So yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's just, but like I said, you know, for them to take a cartoon and for it to still be running 50 years, you know, and to keep those still original styles and art concepts. And right now, the Scooby-Doo direct movies, you know, like the Sword and the Scoob and all those movies, they still keep the same styles, and they still keep the same style on the Mystery Machine. And I love that. And I know there's been, like I said, there's been different reincarnations, but love that they're sticking to the roots. I think it's what keeps it strong.
There was a mistake in Sword and the Scoob when they leave the castle and the dragon does the ring of fire around them. Yeah. It's supposed to be the dragon had eaten, I can't think of his name at the moment.
Oh, he was standing there, wasn't he?
And when they showed it from the front, it was all the gang, but when they showed it from behind, he was standing there, even though technically he was still in the belly of the dragon.
Oh my God.
So that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
It kind of brought me back to, you know, the original when there were so many mistakes.
Oh my God.
Trevor, how about you? What's your favorite art style?
Oh my goodness, it's like preaching to the choir, but I'm a fan of the original, though Mystery Incorporated comes pretty close second for me. If I marry them, if I could marry the elements of them back together, like some of the backgrounds, a lot of the character stylings with the more, you know, graphic nature of Mystery Inc., I would like to see a blend style between them. And usually when I'm painting and drawing, I'm usually looking at the original template and trying to make them a little more, you know, like real to me per se. I'll add the whites in for their eyes, things like that. I'll color Fred's blue and Daphne's green, you know, if I'm drawing them, but it still looks like the original. I feel like Mystery Incorporated is the spiritual successor art-wise. I mean, I could feel the love. Somebody looked. And then lastly, the backgrounds on the original shows, if you just look at them on their own, they're amazing.
They are. They're like
really amazing
works of art on their own.
Because of the way them using the darker color palettes, and still when they put them all together, it's light enough to register. And even on older color TVs that you could still register what was going on just enough. I just think that was amazing.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, actually, very similar to what Trevor was just saying. The original is it's classic. It's great. I mean, there's a reason why the initial show was strong enough that Scooby-Doo has the longevity that he has, and the design work is just amazing. So many things in that initial series worked so well between the music, the design, the backgrounds. It's great, right? So I have to put that at number one, but Mystery Incorporated is easily my second favorite. I really love what they did with Mystery Incorporated, and that's probably the series that when I look at that, I wish I could do some of the things that the background artists did in Mystery Incorporated. I think are really amazing, like what they can accomplish in terms of mood with the color palettes they used. I mean, the shockingly bright, vibrant colors, purples and pinks and oranges, yet they established moods that were almost as scary or scarier than the original. I thought that was really impressive. I wish I could do that. And then the other thing is that going to those backgrounds from the original series, a lot of those were actually done by Disney artists who had left the Disney movie studios. And there's so many, it's funny, there are so many different Instagram accounts right now that are, and one of them's blowing up and all they show are the backgrounds from the original series. And they're gorgeous. Those are really beautiful paintings. So Trevor.
Yeah. Wendy.
My favorite series was the Scooby-Doo show. But if I was going to pick a style of art, I mean, honestly, I have a feeling Trevor might not like this based on some anti-Scrappy things that I saw in our chat.
Don't trigger me. Don't. We need to have a Scrappy show. In all seriousness, we should have a Scrappy show. I would discuss this. No, that's sweet. I love that you said it. I have maturity. We can talk about it. We can talk about it.
That's good. So for me, I honestly think, especially season 1 of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy, as far as art goes, is probably my favorite. I think that that's probably what I saw the most when I was young, was those Scooby-Doo and Scrappy ones. They were on more than the original series. And I definitely think that the original series is like the scariest as far as atmosphere and the color palette. When we got into the Scooby-Doo show later in the 70s, I feel like the colors were a little bit brighter. And then in the 80s or 79, when Scooby-Doo and Scrappy started, it was kind of like even more. And even though I feel like normally I would gravitate towards like the more muted, in this case, I think it's just because I grew up with it. I just love the look of all of the ones with Scrappy, and it's just my favorite. It really is. If I had to like choose one, it definitely would be that. It's got everything going for it.
And I like what Cameron brought up, how they pretty much, for the most part, not everything, but for the most part, they stick with the colors for each of the gang members throughout all of the series, with the exception of Shaggy's red shirt. But to have them do that, I just feel like it makes everything kind of just flow, you know? So you can look at one series, go to another, you know who these characters are, the colors are the same. It helps to just bring it all together. So
yeah, I'm curious if anybody else agrees with this, but for me personally, and yes, I know that there were certain series where, yeah, maybe they changed up the outfits a little bit. Like they kept the color palette the same, but for example, Daphne's outfit in 13 Ghosts is very different, and her hair is different and things like that. She's still obviously Daphne, but for a lot of the series, they did maintain, for the most part, those original outfits. And given that the show is from 1969, that's a very specific era for fashion. The late 60s into the 70s. And yet I still find that even though, yes, I look at the gang in those original outfits and I'm like, okay, I see the retroness to it. But I see them dressed like that now in 2021. And to me, it's not really dated though, the way that a lot of fashions from that era could potentially come across. And I don't really know what it is, but whoever designed those outfits did such an amazing job that over all of these decades, to me anyway, it hasn't dated itself at all. I could imagine seeing someone wearing a similar outfit, you know, a skirt and a turtleneck. What's dated about that? You know, a dress and some heels. The only thing I feel like that might not be as prevalent today is, I'm not sure anybody's wearing an ascot, but plenty of people are wearing scarves. Mm-hmm. Even that, to me, I don't look at it and say, oh, that's a show from back then when they had these weird fashions going on. Like I never feel that way about it. And I'm always amazed that they were able to, like, man, they just hit it. They hit it so well.
Yeah, you know, I agree with that. Two thoughts. One is that's why the Tim Gunn episode of Guess Who is so amazing, when Tim critiques them all, but they're basically all great except for Shaggy. That gag works because of what you're talking about. And the other funny thing about it is I completely agree with what you're saying. Those outfits do still work. It's actually when they change the outfits in the 80s that those are the ones that look ridiculous. Like those outfits, like Daphne's outfit from then and her hairdo is bananas, right? It's so goofy, but you look at the stuff from the 60s and 70s and it doesn't seem dated. So it is interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to add to that?
I was thinking about this the other day, Nikki, when you were talking to us about doing this panel with art styles. I remember watching and y'all may remember this, but on the Scooby-Doo Where Are You box set, they did like all those exclusives. Well, they talked to like some of the people that were like designers and stuff for Scooby-Doo, and like, you know, some of the artists and stuff, and they were talking about how they took every single color from the color palette and added it to the gang. And people are like, oh no, well, that's not true. Well, you think about it, even on the Mystery Machine, you got the greens, the oranges, the purples, the pinks, and I think it's cool how they take in every color and they put it into each of the gang. You know, you think about brown for Scooby, even black on the Mystery Machine tires, gray, you know, on some of the pipe, and, you know, I mean, and you know, silver and stuff like that. And it's just cool how they took all of that and made it different to each, you know, each of the gang. Because, you know, you look at some of the cartoon characters and two of them could be wearing red shirts and then one can be over here with like a blue shirt and then shit. But to me, like Wendy said, those styles did not go out of date. They're still not going out of date. They're staying original. And I think it's neat how those colors have just kind of, you know, carried them through. You know what I mean? It's just, it's like bold statements, but it's so fresh. Every time I see them, I'm like, I don't ever want them to like, you know, I don't ever want them to change their styles. And I don't know, you know, to me, I forget which movie it was. I think it was, I could be saying this wrong. I think it was Music of the Vampire or something. And they were in the Mystery Machine. It was a scene, and Shaggy was like, our Daphne was like, hey, can you reach in our suitcase or something? He's like, oh, I forgot to pack all our suitcase. And Velma and Daphne are freaking out. And Shaggy goes, I don't know what's wrong with y'all. He's like, we wear the same outfits every single day. It's like we stopped in the Mystery Machine, just like took a minute, like, oh yeah, we did. Yeah. So like I said, it's so much fun. And like y'all were saying earlier, the background styles to like the old Scooby-Doo, like, for example, and this is my favorite episode, so I use it all the time, but Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats. You like when you have the show and it shows the art and it kind of has the eerie background music and then it kind of goes into the episode. I think that's so cool. It kind of like sets up the situation, sets up what villain, because when you look at that background, you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I think I have an idea. I think there's going to be a vampire villain, and then there's a vampire villain, because it's like the background works with what the villains are going to be. So yeah. I think it just how all of it connects, even from the originals, even to the new stuff. It's so cool how it sets up the whole episode, and it kind of sets up the mystery as well.
Yeah. Trevor, you were showing the picture of Get a Clue.
Well, I had printed out this sheet that showed all of them, but this, yeah, I really, I kind of like the reinterpretation on them there. I mean, but when you can see that they pretty much, you know, as I said, kept the same palette throughout their incarnations, but this might, well, we can ignore. We can talk about that later.
We'll talk about that soon.
No, but I think as far as the modernization of them, I mean, that pleases me. I mean, not everyone has to agree, but I kind of enjoyed seeing Shaggy get a fresh collar, because sometimes his stuff always looks like it's like a week from being tossed out. It's like, I don't know, you know, I mean, that granted, that's his style, but.
Yeah. I really liked What's New, just because I felt like that was the closest to the original, and they just kind of made it more modern. So I really liked the style that they used for What's New.
Yeah, I remember when that started, and I was really skeptical, because I freely admit I would call myself a Scooby snob. Like, there are things that I like and things that I don't like, and no one's going to change my mind, and original's always best, blah, 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 whatever. But when that series started, I fully expected to not like it, and I was going to find things to not like about it. But the truth is, you're right. You can't not like it, because it is different, but it's still respecting the original. Mm-hmm. And even their ridiculously changed up theme song, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like it. It's catchy. It really is. There's very little to like not like about that series. It was a nice nod to the original, but yeah, just a little bit of a modern twist to it.
I agree with you, and I like how some of them, like I said, taking on the newer styles and stuff like that, have always been a little bit different, but yet still keeping the same concept. The one that I was always a little bit not iffy on, but I just really didn't understand was when they did the 4 movies: Cyber Chase, Alien Invaders, Witch's Ghost, and Zombie Island. When they did those, you know, the Daphne and Freddy's style changed, but then you look at Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, and their style stayed the same. So I wonder if, you know, if they did that on purpose, or, you know, if they did kind of different. Like, I know, like, for example, Cyber Chase, I thought that was pretty cool because you had the gang meet their cyber verses, you know, their cyber selves, and like the cyber universe gang, they had like all the original styles, but then you had them like we're in the real world. Well, and then you kind of saw Velma, she kind of had the same outfit, but a little bit different. And like, it was like a little bit of a darker orange, whereas the original Velma had a lighter orange, you know, and then Shaggy, and then he had red shirt, and then Scooby had red collar. So there was little puns to that, but you know, I wonder why they didn't like completely change the styles to Shaggy and Velma. And like I said, I don't mean that in a bad way. I love the movies. I thought they were absolutely amazing.
I kind of thought like Daphne and Fred seemed to kind of grow up and move on, and Velma was always very much her own person. So I figured she didn't change just because she didn't care. Yeah. And Shaggy really just maybe didn't have the budget to upgrade. But I loved the, I mean, I think all those 4 movies came after Johnny Bravo, right?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
I remember when that cartoon came out, and I had a few years ago to my friends said, it's time to Scooby-Doo return. I feel like that cartoon needs to return. And then they had that Johnny Bravo, and I looked, and it's like, oh, someone heard me in the universe. And then after that, I had a huge, successful, you know, callback. They brought them back. But, and that's pretty awesome. But I thought that I just really thought that when they did that, they wanted them to be a few years forward. And as I said, this had nothing to do with the art, but I enjoyed that they let them grow. Yeah. I mean, I personally would like to see them at age 50 solving their last case or whatever someday. But
their last case at 50. How about last case at 80? Okay. Come on.
Okay, I'm just sorry. Given that. All right, Mindy.
Trevor, have a little.
Okay. Someone's triggered. But no, I'm glad. I would like to see more of them in their early to mid 20s. I would love to see them really with their own agency eventually. I mean, that would be a cartoon series. And that's why I really was burned that Mystery Incorporated didn't go on. But I liked Daphne's jacket and skirt. I liked her reporter look. I loved Fred's, you know, just give him a white shirt. But, you know, he always was styled out to be wearing jeans. So to me, Fred, in a way, had the most standard outfit, the most timeless one of all. You know, what kids don't wear blue jeans, but I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see what you mean about how like Scooby, Shaggy, and Velma kind of like not saying stayed in the past, but they were. Just
no, I didn't mean that. It's just they knew who they were.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think they. I mean, the only time that Velma dressed for other people, and I loved it, was in the second movie, and when Daphne put her in that vinyl outfit. I still think she looked wonderful. It's unfair that it squeaked. Tell me you didn't love it. But as one of my friends said to me, it's like that casting was kind of wrong because Linda Cardellini is way more beautiful than Sarah Michelle Gellar. And he said, Velma shouldn't be prettier than Daphne. And it's like, who said? You know, who said? But I always loved Velma. She's like the undercover fashionista. I don't know if you remember one of the first few seasons where they had them swimming and she had like a 2-piece bikini outfit. I'm like, and they gave her a figure. And I was like, huh. Okay. I mean, you remember the one I'm talking? I forget which one, but
Camp Scare.
Okay. Anyway, going back from, you know, that was All right, somebody take this. Well,
Good,
I mean, as I
Cameron.
said, Velma, I mean, I think, well, I think pretty for women, it's like, it's wonderful they've got these two girls that are both very different, and I still think they're both very pretty girls, and they're very, you know, it's diversity of opinion before it even was a thing. So that's just me.
Yes,
back.
the gang is very much something that's enjoyable by all, for sure. And that's,
Yeah.
It's interesting. Something Cameron said earlier that I hadn't thought about before, when you were talking about the colors and how they tried to work in all of the colors. I mean, I've never thought of it like this before, but think of that iconic shot of the gang and they're walking through a haunted house or a hallway. They're like the rainbow.
Yep.
So when they're all together, they complement each other in such a visually appealing way because you've got all the colors there. I had never thought about that before. And the Mystery Machine, it's almost all of the colors, but they're just off a little bit so that the gang can still stand apart from the Mystery Machine, but the Mystery Machine is adding, it's complementing their colors of the rainbow. And that's, wow, again, a testament to straight up the artwork and the thought and the design that went into the original. And kudos to them for carrying it all the way through, whether they understood why it worked or not. It worked. And yeah, I honestly have never thought of that before, but now I'm never going to unsee it. Every time I see them together, that's how I'm going to look at it now.
Yeah.
How the color, and Wendy, you're right. I love how the colors go together, but they never clashed. And you think about, you know, people in life, sometimes when they put too many colors together, sometimes you can say, oh man, that clashes. But you're right. Yeah. When all the gang are together, or like when they all jump into each other's arms or whatever they're doing in the mystery, the colors never clash. And especially up in the Mystery Machine, it's like they stand out very well, you know. So whoever, because, you know, you think about it, okay, I take green, I take purple, but they didn't take just the regular. They kind of made them a little bit lighter, and they kind of did, like, you know, different textures and stuff. So I thought that was really, really cool to kind of like implement on cartoon characters. Because I'll be honest with you, I love cartoons, but I think Scooby-Doo stands out with color schemes throughout the whole entire cartoon universe, because I've never really, to be honest with y'all, I've never really seen another cartoon that has taken all those colors and just made them work. You know what I mean? So it's really neat to just see how visually it all plays out and comes together.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So let's talk about Get a Clue. So a little visual.
That's the one I had too.
Yeah, same one. So opinions on the art style of Get a Clue. I won't go first. I'll let someone else go first.
Neither will I.
Well, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm fine with the art style, but I don't really think of Get a Clue as being canon. Like, I sort of keep it separate. It's not really a Scooby show to me. I'm fine with what it is, and I like the style, but I just don't even know why they're the same characters. Is my take on it. But I think visually it's okay. I don't love it. It's all right.
Cameron?
When I very first watched Get a Clue, because, you know, I was born in 1998, so growing up, I remember when it very first aired. But I can just remember that, you know, to me, the styles really didn't bother me, but the way, like, the art was, like, of the facial features and stuff like that, to me, just kind of seemed a little weird. But like I said, I do like Get a Clue. I mean, there really has not been a Scooby-Doo series that I have disliked. To me, it's just I gotta break my habit, because, like, when I watch something new that's Scooby-Doo, I'm like, okay, this is not like the original. But then I have to go, okay, Cameron, not everything's gonna be like the original. You know, you gotta kind of understand there's gonna be different forms of it, different art styles, different, just all around how they portray the characters. But yeah, to me, like I said, the styles weren't really bad. Like what their clothes were wearing and stuff like that. To me, it was just like, you know, because Shaggy's eyes looked a little bit weird, you know, and Scooby's facial features were a little bit weird. And to me, it just kind of, I don't know. It was kind of like, to me, it just kind of seemed like a little bit of a forced cartoon, a little bit. And what I mean by that is that, you know, it didn't last very long as a cartoon. And to me, it was like they tried to modernize like the Mystery Machine a little bit too much too. I didn't like the design of the Mystery Machine in that one. And like I said, this is my personal opinion. People may have different opinions about it, but like I said, overall, I mean, you kind of see Shaggy and Scooby take on a different adventure where the gang aren't with them. I mean, I remember there was an episode where, you know, Velma, Daphne, and Freddie did come back, you know, but you saw Shaggy and Scooby and they were just kind of, you know, off in their own world, you know, solving mysteries, you know, doing their thing. Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of have to agree with Will. It wasn't my favorite, but, you know, like I said, I didn't write it off. I did watch it just because I was a diehard Scooby-Doo fan, you know, so.
Wendy, how about you?
I'll be perfectly honest, I have never watched it. I remember when it came out and the style of it kind of turned me off. And the other day when you mentioned we would be talking about it, and I thought, boy, maybe I should go watch some of it. And I looked up the intro on YouTube, and the intro turned me off so much that I thought, no, I'm sure that it's fine. It is what it is. I'm just not interested in partaking of it. The style in and of itself is fine. You know, I don't think that, I mean, I've seen worse for sure. Styles of like cartoons. They're actually, if I wasn't thinking of it in terms of it being Scooby-Doo, I might think like, wow, it's an interesting, but in a good way, kind of way to style, you know, a group of kids and a dog. I wouldn't have any problem with it. And I don't have a problem with it. It's a little bit too far removed from the classic style of the gang that I just really wasn't that into it. When it first came out, I didn't have a way to watch it. And now that I can, I still would rather put on something that's classic. It doesn't really have any kind of draw for me to like, oh, let's go and check it out, because I'm sure it will be fine, but I doubt that it's going to be, you know, like my new favorite or anything like that. So, like Cam pointed out, Shaggy's eyes, it does have kind of gives him a very odd appearance. And I don't know. I hope that the actual stories are better than what I was anticipating, because I'm sure that lots of people did like it. I mean, I would imagine that, well, maybe somebody did. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Trevor, did you like that one? Is that one that you enjoy?
Okay, well, coming from someone of being like trying to be a good student, I had not watched it either for reasons like you. But no, I clicked on YouTube and watched as many segments as I could. And I wish I had taken your perspective now. But I really like the openness of the art style. And it's hard to explain, like some of the shapes, kind of like everything was filled with a little bit of air or helium. It's like they're all kind of poofy. I mean, I like that background style. And I liked the clothes they wore. I like the general, like having them a little more pastel. But, yeah, look at the eyes, just that, you know, kind of like Coraline, the buttons that were soulless, stolen people. That's how it looked to me. I did like that they changed clothes, but again, with the art style, it's like it's Shaggy and Scooby, the scaredest ones, and they have the responsibility to save the freaking world. And then their three friends who could really help them out just aren't helping them at all. I'm back to you, Nikki. Back to you.
It definitely was not one of my favorite series. I didn't really like the way that they were drawn. The theme song drives me crazy. And the fact that it was always fives, it just, I don't know, it kind of took away from the whole, like, there should be a villain in every episode, and now here it's always the same person. I think that just kind of was, it took away from the way that Scooby should be for me. And again, I of course compared it to the original, and it's so far off from the original. So we can move on to Be Cool. So this was the first image that was ever posted of the gang for Be Cool. And this image got a lot of hate.
I can tell you why.
Yes, it is definitely compared to Family Guy. That is for sure.
I think the Family Guy did it better. I think as far as like a spoof on the style, they're kind of more rounded, more plump here. I kind of like them better. It's like, so.
I know when I first saw this image, especially I think the first one that was released was just Scooby. And when I first saw it, the first thing I thought was, they broke him. Yeah. And I was kind of upset because I was thinking to myself, who would do that to Scooby-Doo? Like, who would draw him like that? He looks like, I don't know. I just couldn't believe that somebody would draw him in that style. What did you guys think when you first saw the artwork, Cameron?
I would have to say that when I very first saw the Be Cool style, it just really put a bad taste in my mouth. It really did, because just to me, it was like they took the gang and then like put them in a blender, shook them up a little bit, and then popped them out, and it was like, there you go, you know. And it's just like, what are you guys trying to do? And they were trying to go for like the really, really funny phase of Scooby-Doo, and I don't hate Be Cool Scooby-Doo. I've watched some of the episodes here and there. I'm still, watching the show, on and off a little bit. And, it is funny. I'm not gonna lie. It is pretty funny. And once you give it a chance, like I said, you start to like it a little bit, but like I said, it is not by far one of my favorites, not at all. But, I like that they still kept the styles. I mean, they did keep the original styles, but yet modified them to like how their bodies were, shaped. Because you think about Fred, like he's got like a bigger upper body, and then his legs are like two little toothpicks, and then like the rest of the gang are just I don't know, you even take, I think Be Cool Scooby-Doo was kind of what divided the Scooby fandom a little bit, if you ask me. Because a lot of people are super hateful towards it. Like, that's not my Scooby-Doo. What'd you do? That's trash. I will not watch. And you have others like, oh my gosh, it's the best series ever. It's my favorite Scooby-Doo series. And then you have people in the middle, kind of like where I am, kind of going, okay, I'm not really a big fan of like the art and kind of everything they're trying to do. I do kind of like the stories and stuff. The one thing I will say I respected the most about Be Cool is how they did like do chase songs and stuff like that, and how they did the chase songs from like Scooby-Doo Where Are You and What's New Scooby-Doo. And that's, to me, I always love the chase sequences, because when you watch Where Are You, they would always like run, and then like the old 70s music would play, and it would make it like really fun. And then they kind of they continued that with I'm pretty sure like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and then What's New, and then they kind of brought it back for Be Cool. And I liked that. I thought that was really cool. But there's only so much animation you can do until you get to the point of saying, what are we doing? Because it's like you take everything nowadays, and it's like, to me it seems like almost every single cartoon, everybody thinks they have to redesign them. And I'm thinking to myself, why do we always have to redesign them? Why? But people say, oh, we need a fresher look for them. And I'm thinking to myself, if you just leave them alone, they're perfect the way they are, which I'm happy for the direct to movies, like, The Sword and the Scoob and Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, and, like Aloha Scooby-Doo, all those series, they have kept the styles the same, and that's what kept those going strong, and it's still going strong. And I really do hope they continue that with the movies. Like I'm pretty sure they are going to. But I like I said, the styles, when I very first saw them, it just, like I said, put a bad taste in my mouth. To me, it was like you took animation just a little too far. But like I said, that's my opinion. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I have a lot of opinions in this one.
Okay.
You opened up a whole bunch of stuff there, Cameron. That's good. I had the same initial response that I think the entire world did at those first images. I was pretty bummed out. I've never, and I knew where it was coming from. I know that was sort of a trendy style, but I never really liked that style, even in the other cartoons that it was used in. That said, I now think Be Cool is one of my top 5 series. I love Be Cool. I think history will be very kind to Be Cool. I think it's more rewatchable. I think it's better written. But all that aside, if you just look at the art, I still don't like the character design. And I still have issues with some of the art direction that was used, because everything is very straight lines, very linear. It doesn't flow. And it's interesting because I think if you look at Guess Who right now, it's a direct response to that, because it's very flowy. Guess Who is very similar to the original, except it's actually looser. And in the looseness is a direct response to Be Cool, I think. But there's some really cool stuff that Be Cool allows that show to do, which is it's actually pretty scary. There's some stuff they do in Be Cool that is creepier. The backgrounds are creepier. Some of the monsters are creepier. The one that always comes to mind is the mother in the motel. Like that show, that episode like gives me chills. And my daughter like puts a pillow over her face when the mother's like coming out. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but so good. And you couldn't do that with some of the other styles. It works. It allows you to push the boundaries on the comedy piece, physical comedy, and I think the scariness and some of the monster designs. So I actually think the art style there is, I still don't love it, but I understand why they did it. And I think overall the successfulness of the show more than compensates for Scooby's face in particular is a little sad. So Nikki, I know exactly where you're coming from, but other than that, I give it a huge pass.
I enjoy the show. I mean, I look at it and I think, what would this show be like if they used the original character designs from Where Are You with the writing of this show? It would be so off. It wouldn't make sense. It definitely would not go together. So the animation art style that they used goes with the writing. It would be so off if it was any other style, I think, because it is funny. And I don't think you could get away with doing a comedy show with the original character designs. Wendy, what did you think?
I agree with you that it works for what it is. And that does go to show sometimes that if you want to update one part of a show, sometimes you really do have to go all the way and update all of it. Because it would be kind of silly to see our original gang acting in a more humorous manner. I actually am not, I'm not super fond of how they've put more humor into all of the series. I kind of feel like if we look at it going on, it kind of like progressively got less scary. Although Will is right, some of the newer series, some of it is actually like legitimately scary. They've got some really great monster designs and atmosphere and things like that. So I agree with that. But I do feel like the humor now is meant to be more obvious. And for me, especially in the very first season, because like Cam, I enjoy the music for the chase scenes very, 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 very much. But I never really loved those scenes because it breaks up that spookiness for me. And I always wondered if maybe that was why they started doing that. I keep thinking, have you guys seen, I'm going to guess it's if it's not the first one, it's got to be one of the very first like promo videos that they had for the original series. It's on YouTube. It's before it aired. It's just this promo for this new show. It is so scary. I cannot even, I mean, the show doesn't even match that level of like frightening. They've got all of the colors like muted even more. It's got like kind of this like vague like sepia filter on it or something. Like that's kind of what it looks like. It's got the spooky music, and whoever is narrating it, I mean, I want him to narrate every scary movie that I've ever seen now. The voice is just so good. And it really built up. I mean, if I saw that promo now and I'd never seen the show, I would be so excited because it just, oh, wow. But I do feel like as they went along, it's almost like they thought, gee, are we making it, is it too scary for kids? Do we need to make it like have a little bit more relief in it? And so for me, that's kind of always what I thought the chase scenes were for in season 2, where they were like, well, we can still have that spookiness because season 2 is very similar to season 1, but we'll just put in this fun little pop song, which again, I love the music. And it'll just, if there are any like younger kids watching, it'll just bring them back a little bit. So they're not like so frightened by what's going on. But as far as the art style goes, I have thoughts about this too. I actually am a fan of Family Guy, and that is definitely what I think of when I see this particular series of Scooby. But my problem is less about the series in itself or even that art style, because it works for the story. But in a broader sense, I kind of feel like I don't want to offend anybody who's watching this by saying this, but I am going to say it because it is, I mean, I've been working as a professional artist for 16 years, and I take great pride in my work, and everyone on this panel is an excellent artist. And what Will does, I mean, honestly, I have to stop myself from leaving comments on some of your things and being like a fangirl and being like, can you do this one? Can you do this character? Could you do this? I'm like, no, settle down. It's this guy, like, he has a job and stuff. Like, you can't do that, you know?
Sure.
And I love your style of it. The way that you compose them is just like, it's like chef's kiss, how they do it today, like the kids do. But I feel like the idea of what is art is very, 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 very loose these days. And I understand the idea that, you know, everyone should be able to do what they enjoy. And I do not have a problem with that. But I see some cartoons and I'm like, how did that get past quality control? Because just because you can draw something, in my opinion, it doesn't make it art. And it doesn't mean that it is like, I'm sorry, but fit for consumption. I'm trying to think of it like a nicer way of saying that, but I can't think of the words for it. That's very harsh. And I don't mean it quite that harsh. But I look at that series and I'm like, it's unnecessary. It's just unnecessary. I don't like this free and looseness where anybody picks up a pencil and puts something on paper. It's a magnificent piece of art. I don't agree with that. You know, I just don't. And that particular brand of Scooby-Doo, like if my 8-year-old drew that, I'd be like, wow, you did amazing. Let's put it on the refrigerator. And I'd mean it. Seeing it as like a major show on a network, though, I look at it and I'm like, I'm mildly offended that this was considered good enough for everyone to fan over it. Like, I understand how that makes me sound, and if I take some hate for that, that is okay. That is okay. But I feel like there are a lot of people thinking what I just said, and they're afraid to say it. So I have said it. I apologize if anyone is offended by it, but that is definitely my feeling about it.
And there's a lot of people that refuse to even watch Be Cool because of the art style. So I'm pretty sure you're not alone in feeling that way. Yeah. Trevor, what are your thoughts on Be Cool?
Okay, that was another one that I had not watched until the assignment. So I went ahead, went to trusty YouTube, and I just hit a list of like 4 or 5 minute clips from a ton of episodes, and experiencing them that way was probably more palatable than watching whole ones. I kind of like the backgrounds, but yeah, they were drawn in a way that it felt very spoofy. but the dialogue and stuff, and I like that Scooby actually had clearer pronunciation than he's had in most cartoons. He has several lines. He can say whole sentences. He's sarcastic. And I have to say, I enjoy that. Again, that has nothing to do with the drawing, though. I also have issue with how they malign Fred to no end. I'm really tired of how Fred is treated in mainstream Scooby-Doo now. But that's a whole other podcast. I'm very Fred, pro Fred. But I just feel like it was a show done kind of as grown people laughing in their own shirt sleeves, and it's drawn to look that way. It's you know, I actually would love to see a Scooby cartoon drawn in the style of a proper anime. Something like Ghost in the Shell or something, where when the rain comes, you can see the little white specks of the reflections of the water off the characters. Something like that. Maybe it would be a project like Scooby Apocalypse, that they would turn that into something like an anime. But I don't know if I like that story either because of what they do to Fred. But anyway, yeah, it just feels kind of cheap and easy. But as I say, the writing, I think, is self-referentially sharper than the others, which it offsets. But still, in that end, that doesn't really justify it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I did, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, I hope an 8-year-old drew that, and they're making a series based on an 8-year-old's drawings, because if an adult drew that, they're obviously not a Scooby fan. Like, how could you be a Scooby fan and draw them in that style?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is good because we have different opinions. Wendy, I appreciate your honesty here. So, you probably won over half the people and alienated the other half. So I'll do the same thing, but from the other side, if that makes for good video, right? And I almost wasn't gonna bring this up because you guys started off this way, but from a visual standpoint, I actually think that what's new is the worst, is actually the weakest one. And everything that you're talking about, not that I think they're bad artists, but I think that the design of what's new, the character design, and especially the color palettes, feel very what's the word, watered down. Like anything that was edgy from the earlier show, like we think about the original Scooby-Doo as being, Hanna-Barbera from the 60s and 70s, and not very dangerous and not very, very edgy. But visually speaking, it had a lot of really great elements between the backgrounds and the design we already talked about. And I look at what's new, and I find that that's the one actually where the art style actually doesn't go with what they're trying to do. And I think it undermines it because it's the pastel colors. They actually took a lot of the characters in the 60s and 70s, their postures were so dramatic, right? I mean, if you look at the angle of Shaggy's neck sometimes in the early ones, like just crazy stuff, and how Daphne used to stand, and it feels very generic. Like the what's new just feels very corporate to me, because they just try to make everything as just take the edge off of everything all the time. And so from just a purely visual standpoint, although I don't like the Be Cool style, I think that it is the right style for the stories, and I enjoy it. And I think it has a point of view. And I think what's new to me is so generic, it actually doesn't have a point of view. And that to me actually feels like the people who made it don't care about it. Whereas I think the people who made Be Cool actually really do care about it, but they went at it from their own angle, and their angle alienated a lot of people. So that's my other side of that one.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, it does. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I've seen the entire series. It's so strange. I know that I have seen episodes of it, but I just have no like distinctive memory of any parts except for the theme song and what Trevor said, where I don't like how they treat Fred. I feel like I'm not sure which it is, there's been so many now, but there was another series where Daphne was really stupid. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that they did that to her. And then to see them do that to Fred, I don't think it's necessary, because I think part of what made the original so wonderful is that they never talked down to each other. They didn't make fun of each other. There was like that element of, well, let's say reality. It didn't exist in the Scooby universe. And I think that was really important, given that it was a show for children. I think that was really good to show them that you can be different. It doesn't make it a problem, you know, and it doesn't have to be pointed out, good or for bad. We just are who we are, and we love each other. We're friends, and we get along, and we want to hang out. I did actually enjoy, from what I mean, like I say, I can't think of any specific episodes that I watched, but I know that I didn't hate the story other than Fred. You know, it was not that it was a bad series, you know, it was okay. And I feel like with a lot of shows, not just Scooby-Doo, but a lot of times where you see like a reimagining of something, it is important. Cameron touched on this earlier. Look at it for what it is. It doesn't always have to be compared to the original or what you know. I mean, you are always going to some degree, and you kind of have to, because, well, listen, guys, you are banking on the name in order to make your new fortune. So show a little bit of respect. But on the same hand, each show, look at it as its own thing. And if you do that, I do find that it's very rare that you can't find something redeeming about it. You know, something will be enjoyable if you're not trying to stuff it into a box that it's not meant to go in the box. You know, maybe it's in the same filing cabinet or it's in the same closet, but it's got its own, put it in that box. It doesn't have to go into this other box with these other things, you know, appreciate it for what it is. And I guess that is kind of maybe to like soften what I said earlier about art in general. Maybe that is a good point to make. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean there's nothing redeeming about it. You know, and it is important to look at things with perspective. You know, maybe I don't like this, maybe I would do it different, but this is someone else's. And maybe it's the best that they can do. And look for something good in it. I really feel like there's very little in this world that if you look hard enough, that there's nothing good that you can find. You can find it. You can find it. Sometimes you have to, you know, swallow your own pride or swallow your own whatever, you know, your own opinions, and respect other people's for what it is. They're them and you are you, and that's good. That's good. We shouldn't all be the same. That would be incredibly boring if everyone just liked all the same things and disliked all the others. You know, our panel might be fun if we all agreed 100% on everything. It would still be fun for us, but this is fun too. Sometimes talking about how we don't completely agree, sometimes you realize that maybe you agree more than you thought, you know, and I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Absolutely.
Nikki, if you don't mind me, I want to touch a little bit on kind of the different shows and a little bit on Mystery Incorporated, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, you know, when y'all stop and look at the animation style and y'all stop and look at how Scooby-Doo is perceived, I don't think it's ever going to go backwards, if you ask me. And I'm talking about as far as the, you know, how they look back in the 60s, or excuse me, the 70s, because, you know, it's never going to go backwards. Animation is always going to go forwards. And I think, to me, it's really cool how Scooby-Doo in the 50 years has different elements in each show. If you want to watch something super funny, you watch a pup named Scooby-Doo or Be Cool. If you want to watch something a little bit more dark and mysterious, you can watch Mystery Incorporated or Where Are You? And if you want to watch something just all around Scooby, you know, you can stick to the originals or watch, you know, What's New or what, you know, whatever you like or what you prefer. you know, when we talk about art styles, I know we also talk about, to me, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, style wise can come from mood. And what I mean by that is, when you take, for example, when you watch Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, they kind of have a little bit of attitudes in there. And what I mean by that is that, you know, and kind of like what Trevor said, they made Fred like a dumb jock in Mystery Incorporated. I did not like that at all, you know, because in the originals, you know, Fred was always the leader. He was always strong, and he was always, you know, smart, and he always had a plan, you know, and in kind of a Mystery Incorporated, they kind of made him kind of like he was dumber. And then and Mystery Incorporated, you know, Daphne was always kind of a little bit, you know, so desperate for Fred, and she always had to have love. And then Velma was always trying to, you know, be in love with Shaggy, and then that was always forced, you know. So you look at these different styles that go along with Scooby-Doo, it honestly comes from how they portray the gang and how their attitudes go along with the styles. Because, you know, I don't know if it was, I'm trying to think if it was a show. Take, for example, Teen Titans Go. You had Teen Titans, and then you had Teen Titans Go. Well, on Teen Titans Go, they brought the Scooby-Doo gang over for a crossover. And not a lot of people know about it, but they brought them over for a crossover, and it was Family Feud. And, you know, Nikki, it was like you said, they took the original styles, kind of like the Where Are You styles, and threw them in there and tried to make it super funny. It didn't work. It did not. I was watching and I was cringing the whole time. I was like, oh no, this isn't working, you know. But if they would have took like Be Cool and threw them in the crossover with the Teen Titans Go, maybe that would have worked a little bit better, you know. But like I said, I always find that to be kind of a rare and touchy topic, because like I said, and when I talk about this, I'm never like putting another series down. I'm never putting a Scooby series down. Like I said, I've loved them all. I think each of them have, like you said, Wendy, if you look hard enough, you can find something great in each of them. But I feel like throughout different series, each of the gangs have had, each of the members or cartoon characters or whatever have had a little bit different attitudes, and that portrays a style. And I don't know if y'all agree with me on that or not, but I see that when you start watching the really funny series versus the really dark series. So.
Well, I think that's interesting to bring up, and I'd wish I had printed it out. But that episode of Johnny Bravo, they were drawn in to Johnny Bravo in the Johnny Bravo style, but I remembered they were flawless. I don't know, maybe it's just that I hadn't seen them in a long time and I was just desperate. But they were drawn in more of the funny style, but they were funny, but they were still themselves, mainly because since it was Aunt Jebediah's house, you know, they were all making fun of him, but Velma kind of like had the hots for him for a minute. But all that, I seem to recall though that particular cartoon, they were pretty much themselves, but they were still branded for a meta brand of humor that I don't think they've matched since. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've seen that one, and I don't know if you all have seen it too or even remember it.
Yeah, Bravo Doobie-Doo. It actually, to be honest, the only thing I didn't like about it was, I'm not sure who voiced Scooby in that, but I couldn't stand it. Just the sound of Scooby's voice really put me off. But you're right, they did stay pretty much true to the characters as far as how they looked. They just gave it a Johnny Bravo flair somehow. Like they totally fit. And it was very funny. You know, it definitely, as far as like the kind of the offbeat stuff, it's probably one of my favorites involving Scooby, because I also really like Johnny Bravo, and that was a very good pairing. The way that they meshed it together, it definitely did. It went together really, really well. I feel like that wouldn't always work. I don't think you could do that with everything, but that one, they did a good job.
Which proves it can kind of be done, where you can blend a humor and let them be a little self-referential. Because I remember there was one point where Fred looked at the camera and winked about going off with Daphne when Velma crashed into Johnny and they put on each other's glasses. She put on his things like that. That it's like it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
Anyway. Can we all talk about Mystery Incorporated? Because I want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
I love the way that it looked. I love at first, I mean, I was somebody that read all the information on every book and back of box, and I know Nikki knows, but they released information about where they were from, and they were from Coolsville, and it told how tall they were and what their eye color was. But them being from Crystal Cove, I mean, that was, you know, a thing I had to get over, and I did. But the idea of that you were watching them as a prequel kind of made other things like that they didn't have all the characters beats in kind of acceptable. But I loved the color backgrounds. I loved that it had that kind of, there's styles in old ad art and stuff where people would take like a clamp and put a long rag or a brush and dip ink in it. It was like an old school marker. So you'd have a sky done in 2 or 3 strokes, and painting, you know, before the, you know, like Copic markers and things, but it was painted, it was marker, it was fast. It had those kind of elements that the original did, but it was like on acid, you know, with the intensity. I just loved that. And I liked how they were drawn too, with the exception of the bow and Velma's hair, which I don't get. And I mean, I also like the character design of their families and such. And then, but anything else would be going into characterization, which that would be a whole other show. But I enjoyed too. We remember in the museum about their exploits, I think, or there was in Velma's Moms where they'd had some of the things they had been up against already, and the way they had rendered those were pretty faithful to the first go around. So but anytime you have the purple, the dark blue, the black, and then, you know, the olive, you know, the avocado greens and the oranges, you know, that's Scooby to me. So for backgrounds.
I'm with you, Trevor, on needing a Fred panel. I totally agree that, and we can't do it now, but Nikki, that would be a good one. Although Cameron, you know what's interesting is I take issue with some of the treatments of Fred, but actually Mystery Incorporated doesn't bother me because he's very quirky in Mystery Incorporated. Like he's not just a dumb jock, and he has agency and he's really good at stuff, and he gets his hero moments, I guess. So he's not always the butt of the joke. So it doesn't bother me there. I actually dislike Fred a lot more. The Freddie Prinze Jr. version, to me, I really don't like the Freddie Prinze.
Well, no, they made it where he was against everybody, and him and Velma having that friction.
It was just a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear you kind of take that interpretation of Mystery, because I don't think of him that way from that series, but he definitely gets treated weird. Actually, the direct to movies, sometimes I think Fred gets the direct to video. Sometimes I don't like how they treat Fred in those ones either. So well, another topic, Nikki.
We need to have a Fred. We need to have a Fred panel. Yeah.
Okay, I will make note of that. We will do a Fred panel. So going back to art style, what about a pup named Scooby-Doo? Like for me, I liked a pup named Scooby-Doo. I thought it was cute that they made them kids. But I felt like part of that series kind of annoyed me. The dance sequences, I didn't like that. I thought that was really odd during chase scenes. Like, why are they dancing? Maybe it was just because they're kids and, you know, they don't want to be running, but but what did you guys think of the style for a pup named Scooby-Doo?
I really enjoyed A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and I would have to say it's one of my top series just because of how funny it was and how, you know, I mean, it was honestly, if you were going to take the most random one, I think it would be A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, because it was just, there were some moments that were just so like over the top and random, and you wouldn't think it would work, but it was actually one of the top rated Scooby-Doo shows. And you look in the Scooby community and everybody loves A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I think it was neat how in the 80s, they kind of went back in time with the cartoon characters and kind of made them all kids. Like you had like the Tom and Jerry kids, you had the Flintstone kids, you had A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. And think there was another one, I forget, but it was just cool to see that and to see how they were all taken back to their childhoods. You know what I mean? And Trevor, you did mention something that did kind of open my eyes. You look at whether it's Mr. Incorporated, Pup Named Scooby-Doo, even the parents of the gang kind of kept the same color schemes as well. And I always loved that. I thought that was so funny and just like, so I was like, oh, that's really cool. Cause you know, Daphne's parents would like walk up and they would have she would have like a purple dress and he would have like a purple suit on. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just thought that was always like a funny reference. When you look at the art styles though, of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, some of them are kind of, you know, like a little out there, I would say, you know, like sometimes it's like, the
villains were out there. They were the strangest villains.
They were like, I remember one was like a snail that was on roller skates. And I was just like, what in the world were they doing when they were, you know, illustrating that? But, you know,
probably something controlled, I'm sure.
But, like I said, to me, I really enjoyed it. The art styles were a little bit out there, but I think that's kind of like I said, you know, Be Cool Scooby-Doo, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Get a Clue. Those were kind of like the funny random ones, and they worked. They really did work. You know, when you look at if you want something that's really Scooby funny, you know, and how Shaggy would always make a joke and Scooby would laugh and then he'd look into the camera and say, I don't get it, you know, and then everybody, you know, I always thought that was so funny. I was like, you know, because it's kind of like Scooby had a little bit of sarcasm, kind of like how Trevor said in the beginning, kind of with Be Cool, he had a little bit of sarcasm in there. So I like I said, I personally liked it. The only downside I would say about A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is that, you know, I wish they would have kind of given a little bit more time into the characters. Sometimes I felt like they just kind of rushed into the mystery or rushed into a dance sequence. You know, sometimes I kind of felt like it was rushed. Again, that's my personal opinion. I wish they kind of would have taken a little bit more time. Like, for example, through the whole series, you really didn't get to know a lot about Velma, but, you know, like you learned a lot about Daphne and her background and, like, you know, her father owned this and, you know, that was her mansion. They went, you know, but you didn't really get to like explore each of the characters as the kids. And I felt like if they would have kind of done that and kind of showed more of like the backgrounds, you know, background and the secret, the sequences and all that of like each character in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, I think it would have been like amazing. And I wish they would have done more seasons, to be honest with you. But, you know, like I said, it was one of those Scooby's shows that was kind of like cut short, in my personal opinion.
Well, how about your thoughts on A Pup Named Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, I like the series fine. My daughter loves the series, and she sings, I think it's Cheese Monster has a little jingle. She sings the Cheese Monster jingle all the time. It's really good.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me about that one is a lot of time when we're talking about the art of Scooby-Doo, we're very focused on the design of the characters or the backgrounds or the overall look. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is actually the one where the problem and what really stands out to me is actually the quality of the animation. And you think about the old school Hanna-Barbera stuff as being really basic, and they do make the mistakes, the wrong colors and the wrong voice, and that, which is kind of quaint. With A Pup Named Scooby-Doo and what they were trying to do with cartoons at that time is they were actually trying to make the animation more sophisticated. And so A Pup Named Scooby-Doo does a lot of things that they wouldn't do in the old show. There's a lot more changing of perspectives and figures getting larger and then smaller instead of always staying like the same distance from the camera, right? Their old Hanna-Barbera, they had like 3 camera angles and it was always that. They reused the same shots. And so they're trying to do these really complex things. And I appreciate that. I think the style was cool. It was kind of what was hot at the time. But when you watch them now, you can see that they did not have the time or the budget or the people to do it very well. And so there's tons of misalignments and the scale of things is always off. And if you go back and watch it and look at the backgrounds relative to the figures, they're always standing in the wrong place. And the size of stuff is all messed up. And on top of that, the other thing that's interesting is if you're like, we stream everything through Boomerang, which I think a lot of us do, the quality of the photography, like when you blow it up into HD, that series actually looks the worst. And I don't know why, but it was probably because it was early video. That's actually why. That's why, because original Scooby would have been on film. So that was video, but it was early video. So the resolution is really poor. So it's just sort of an interesting time capsule from that standpoint, technically.
Wendy?
Yeah, it's a series that I really like, but that I don't necessarily enjoy watching a lot. I can't really think of any episode that I didn't like in some manner. Again, I felt like this was really the start of treating Freddie inappropriately. Again, if I'm looking at just the show, if I don't know Freddie from anything else, it works. It works. It is, like Cameron said, it is probably the series with the most humor and the most like successful humor. It's deliberate and it works. Daphne was another characterization that I didn't love, and I always had a problem that they made her pink. I mean, pink's my favorite color. I actually really like all of her outfits because she gets a few changes in the show. But I'm also like, well, it's Daphne. Why is she not in purple? I have to admit, I felt that was a little bit of an unnecessary change that bugged me as a fan of previous series. I actually really like the art style, but Will's right. Quality-wise, it definitely, even on the DVDs, I had it out the other night to try and find a picture for one of the tweets I was setting up. And yeah, it's unfortunately, it's not great quality. And that is unfortunate. I think it had some really good, some good stories. As far as like the scale thing, that's interesting. I kind of wonder though, how maybe some of those style, like I'm wondering, is that maybe a style choice to make it more of like kind of like I always thought of it as kind of like a bit of a nod to like a pop art kind of style, that particular series where like it's the 80s, but we're getting close to the 90s. So styles are changing and things like that. And it is, they're kids. And I always wondered if they didn't like deliberately do some things that were like out there, out of scale. The monsters, like, I mean, the cheese monster is one of my favorite ones. And that song, honestly, as soon as you said that, rest of the night's going to be playing in my head. And it's ridiculous, but it's so good at the same time. Like the whole thing is ridiculous, but in its ridiculousness, how do you not love it? I will say though, I think that its saving grace is Don Messick and Casey Kasem. If they were not voicing Scooby and Shaggy, I am not sure that I could tolerate that cartoon at all. I just have that feeling that if it wasn't them doing it, I don't know that it would still work. I don't know.
Trevor, what about you?
Well, it felt like it was trying to be a lot like a Dexter's Lab or some of those other Cartoon Network shows. I don't know if I've got my dates right on remembering when all that was. And then coming after things like with all the little things and Muppet Babies and stuff. Yeah, I liked it. It just seemed innocuous. I mean, my favorite thing is Velma's really big glasses. The so round, she looked like a little owl, and that kind of cueing into just how wise she was. And the background, like the perspectives are totally off in everything, all the backgrounds, all the lines, just done off. But I mean, to that point, it looked like it was done on purpose. So it just always seemed to me, it's just like a lighthearted spin. So, I mean, it seemed to me to be very good at that. I really, nothing against, I mean, this was one time you could have ditched the ascots and Fred was a little boy. One time you could have done it logically and they chose not to. And looking, the whole red herring thing, it's just not good. Not good. Not good. All right, that's all I have to say. You know what I'm talking about, Wendy. You know what I'm talking about, Wendy.
What you're talking about.
I think it was red herring one time. I think they let it.
The one time that Fred thought it wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. It's not red herring. And then it was red herring. And I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. Trevor, you brought up before that you would like to see a series with the gang being older, like in their mid to late 20s. Do you think that would work as a animated series, or do you think that would have to be more live action?
I would like to see it done like one of the Netflix shows where they have a season of about 18 episodes or whatever, or how they approach it. I just finished watching Voltron, and you took this wonderful, fun, smart concept, but so cheesily animated, it was painful back then to watch. And they dusted it off and they brought it to life, and they just, pumped it full of steroids. And they still may have missed, from the reviews I read, maybe some of the story they didn't pay attention still. But things like something like that, I think for Scooby would be just a wonderful, reverential, not really R-rated, but a nice adult treatment of Scooby with a full animation budget, limited series, and make it, give it a story arc. Maybe have him pursue like a serial, if not a serial killer, maybe like a serial ghost. But give them the animation that they deserve, like draw them like in their way, in their reality, but give them the whites of their eyes, color their irises, let them be, let them be this, but in real life. I mean, maybe more an animated version of what the Scooby-Doo 2 movie was, if that makes any sense, and maybe a little darker. Do you remember the bumpers that Cartoon Network did that made fun of the Blair Witch?
Mm-hmm.
Those were so on point. I'm like, why don't you make a whole show like that? Do I have a witness? Do you all agree? You don't have to agree with me, but
I know I can see where you're going with that for sure.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
I don't know. Yeah, I actually I watched some of that Blair Witch stuff that they had done just a few nights ago, and I remember it when it was airing though as well. And it was weird because I have mixed feelings about it, because what you're saying, Trevor, I agree with you, and yet there's a part of me that's like, I don't know that I want to see it though. Like I do and I don't, because I feel like it's a very slippery slope between like what is Scooby without any of the humor? If we look at like the first,
I know. Well,
like
is,
I'm worried. I'm worried about if it would still translate as Scooby. Okay. Like I'm not saying that you have to go R-rated. Keep it PG. Well,
I might say if you just look at the very first episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the situations were dead on real. The backgrounds were really dark. The humor came from them learning to like each other and the stress they were under, and instead of having sharp tongues, so there was humor. But I never doubted the severity of the situation. And there's also this idea in the military, there's humor in the trenches. Like when things are really dark, you crack jokes sometimes. So that's how I would like to see a Scooby-Doo done. And I think the first incarnation shows that pretty well. I mean, the only thing that we would have to ditch is like them finding costumes from nowhere and how they dress up as waiters or Russian soldiers or and then as I'm saying, I'm like, do we really? But ditching the major, pushing this much sandwich down into their mouth, I think it could translate pretty well. I would like to see an attempt.
As far as art,
one more thing I want to say. Oh no, I'm just, my brain is so fried lately. I just wanted to get this out. Old school TV had an example of the kids, like the first TV show that was designed to be geared toward a teenage perspective was The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Now, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis was pretty much a basis for Scooby-Doo. Dobie was Fred, Maynard was Shaggy, and Zelda was Velma, and who Tuesday Weld was Daphne. But I think that you can have. I think you could do it. I mean, it was done before it was even done. Those were the characters that they, like, kids getting together and doing something. But the thing is, the danger would be it turning into like the Cabin in the Woods movie, or just some executive would want to make it some kind of slasher film. One thing I don't like is sometimes when they portray Fred as being inept and Daphne as being too danger prone. If they were real people, they would have died in half the cases they've dealt with. And I'm not trying, I'm bringing the room down, but I would love to see them competent, lucky, living, and then, I don't, does that make sense? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Have you guys seen, this is like a very random thing, but I think it will make sense. Have any of you seen the movie, I'm not even sure of the year, like late 80s, The Last Unicorn? Nikki, do you know that one?
I don't think so,
Nope.
no.
Oh.
Okay, how about like the Lord of the Rings series of cartoon versions from the 80s as well?
Saw those.
That art's like, in my opinion, those Lord of the Rings ones and The Last Unicorn, very similar visual in that style. Given what Trevor was saying about like a more adult without being adult, I feel like that style of art could maybe work for Scooby, where it's dark, it's quite realistic. Some of those characters in The Last Unicorn, especially King Hagrid with Christopher Lee voicing him, like he's a cartoon and he's exaggerated, but he's also very, very realistic, and it makes him very frightening. That would be an interesting, it's not quite anime, but it is like a step up in the realism and the adult scale. And I wonder if that would work as I don't know that they could actually do that today, but I wonder if it would be any good.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. Trevor, Wendy, y'all bring up some really good points. And I'm pretty sure everybody's heard about this, but if y'all haven't, Mindy Kaling is going to be voicing Velma for like an adult series of Scooby-Doo. Well, when I heard about this, a lot of thoughts were going through my mind. And, we did a panel before, me, Wendy, and Nikki, and some others, talking about the sexualization of cartoon characters. I'm not going to jump into that. But when you take Scooby-Doo and put them into a darker tone, like I said, kind of going back a little bit, but go back to Mystery Incorporated. They balanced that cartoon so well, where you took dark elements, but yet still kept it pure and kept the light in there. And it balanced out so well. It was such a great series. It was one of my top series. But, we haven't even got a sneak peek of what Velma, the series, is going to be like, with Mindy Kaling voicing it. And honestly, it scares me a little bit. From what I understand, the animation's gonna be like kind of like how you mentioned, Wendy and Trevor are talking about, kind of like the like a Netflix anime series kind of. That's how I'm thinking in my head. It could be completely different. But when you're taking art styles and when you're putting them into Scooby-Doo to make them a little bit darker, you've got to be careful with that. Because if you go full on dark, it can make it where it's absolutely poisonous. Where when somebody turns it on to watch it, it's like it's too dark, and it kind of wards off people in a sense. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about like I like I said, I'm a person that I would not like to see Scooby-Doo in a sense of murder, killing, sex, violence. That's just me. Some people are all for it and want to go full blown into that Scooby. I'm not. I always like to keep it pure and clean, because if my kids are going to watch it one day, I want them to watch the pure, clean Scooby-Doo that I grew up with. It was what kept my childhood pure and innocent. But also, to a certain degree, growing up, there was some darker elements thrown in there, and I knew it. People understood it, but balancing it, I think finding the balance is hard. And Me and Nikki aren't full-time artists like Trevor, Will, Wendy. I've seen y'all stuff and how y'all draw y'all stuff. It is absolutely incredible. And I'm not just saying it to say it. You three are absolutely incredible artists, and I mean it. But I love how y'all take some dark tones sometimes and throw it into y'all's work, but yet y'all still keep it, like I'm going to use 3 examples. Wendy, I love how you made some drawings the other day of some Where Are You Scooby-Doo stuff, how like the little gypsy doll and stuff like that. But yet it kind of had a little bit of a dark tone in there. I loved it. I thought it was excellent. Will, when you do some of your stuff, it is so cool, but you throw those dark elements in there. Like I remember your latest one was a 10,000 volt ghost. It looks so dark and mysterious, but yet it still kept the pure, clean, how am I trying to say this? It kept the concept of that, and it captured the nostalgic vibes. And so I absolutely loved it. And how you threw the sounds in there as well. My God, that was so cool. And then Trevor, I've seen your work on Instagram and your page, you have absolutely outdid yourself. Seriously. I mean, your work has been absolutely incredible, but you throw darker tones on there too, where you can see, okay, yeah, it's still light, but yet it can be a little bit darker too. And it still works, like I said, I'm not trying to repeat myself, but finding the balance can be hard. And I know when you're trying to make when you're trying to design a show, trying to find where, if I like, for example, take Scooby Natural. Okay. I love Scooby. I love Scooby Natural. I thought it was absolutely
dark. Yeah, but it was dark. I mean,
but it was very dark. My mom watched it with me and she was like, this ain't Scooby-Doo. And I'm like, but have you watched Supernatural? And she's like, no. And I'm like, then it doesn't make sense. So you take Supernatural and yet you throw it into the Scooby-verse. But I love, and my favorite thing about it was when they were doing Scooby Natural, Dean looked over to Sam and he said, look at them. They're pure and innocent. We have to keep it like that. So that's when the balance started coming into it being dark and still keeping it light. You have dark and light when you're doing these art projects and doing these designs and all that. And when you can balance it, it works. But then, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I'm just saying, but in the original conception, the ghosts were supposed to be real. And that's the whole other podcast too.
Yeah.
Should they or should they not be real?
Right.
Very dark in its original conception when it was 4 kids, musicians that solve mysteries. A show, me going back in time, I would kill to have seen what they would have done. But it's like too much, have them be criminals, bring in a dog to have a lighter tone. But also we'd have to say to do what you do, and I love it. But the criminals back then had an honor system. No one pulled a gun on the gang.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's like if we want to do a cartoon now of some people trying to pull some real shenanigans and getting crossed, we've got to make the kids more able to deal with that, or that suspension of disbelief of criminals that aren't going to guard their stuff with weapons. That's going to make for a kind of a silly movie that the 10-year-olds are going to go, yeah, that's not. So, but I know I feel you. I feel like,
No, and you know what? You're exactly right. I mean, Trevor, take, for example, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. It is one of the most popular Scooby-Doo movies, and the monsters were real.
Real.
Yes, and it worked, I remember when the zombie head popped off, and then Daphne and Fred and Shaggy were passing around going, oh, God, oh, God. And that was super dark. And how the werecats came and how they turned into dust. That was super dark. And you're right. Sometimes they're going to be put into those situations. But I think, and I've talked about this with me and Nikki, we work with Scott Ennis. But when we talked to Scott about Zombie Island, he told us they were trying to balance the light and the dark. And they hit it. I mean, I cannot tell y'all how perfect they did that. Because you go back and watch Zombie Island, it's absolutely incredible, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people love Zombie Island. And, to me, it's almost like, you're right. Going forward, there's going to be more and more elements thrown in there. Like, for example, I know in some of the recent Scooby-Doo movies, the gang have cell phones. you know, Mystery Incorporated, some of the direct, you know, but back in the 70s, they had, okay, gang, we got to stop. We got to pull the mystery sheet over and go to a payphone, you know, but now they're starting to throw more elements in there. But it kind of goes to show they're throwing these elements in there and they're working. You know, they're throwing these things in there nowadays that kids understand, but it's working. And so I'm thinking to myself, as we keep going on with animation, or if they change Scooby-Doo, how are we going to keep throwing those elements in there where kids understand it, but yet it still works? And so I guess, like I said, that could be a mystery, you know, but it's really fun to see, like you said, Trevor, how they throw those elements in there and how they kind of, and like I said, I'm saying it 10 million times, but balance it out. I love how they balance it out. That's what kept Scooby-Doo going for 50 years strong, in my personal opinion.
So going back to the art style, I think they could have a very dark art style of animation and a very nicely realistic tone to the backgrounds and figures. And if they have those story elements you're talking about, it should be okay. I don't think a dark sky these days is going to bother the children. It's the other stuff maybe that they'll do. So I could be wrong, but.
Well, what are your thoughts on a more adult Scooby as adults in an animated style?
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I watched the last podcast where you were talking a bit about this subject matter, and there's no premise that I think is necessarily that I consider to be off limits necessarily. To me, almost anything can be done well, and almost anything can be done poorly. And there's some Scooby stuff that I think successful, and some that isn't. And there's stuff that you wouldn't think would be successful and is, and vice versa. So I don't necessarily look at any one concept and say, no, we shouldn't do that, or we should do this. I completely agree with, you know, I think a lot of our aesthetics are probably similar in that we want a Scooby that pushes some boundaries, but still is faithful to the classic in a lot of ways, visually and the spirit of it. But I do think that in the same way, Scooby is one of those rare pop icon properties that's like a superhero, like a Batman or Superman or anything like that. It's been around for so long. And I think Mike said this the other time, you actually can't break Scooby-Doo. Like, you really can't break them. And I think as frustrating as it is when you see something that you don't like I think the Mindy Kaling thing could definitely rub a lot of, like, I'm really interested in it. I love Mindy. I don't know if I'm going to like that or not. It's very possible that I won't like it. But I actually think that you have to appreciate that we want people to do those things. One, because it expands the audience, it expands the tent. You get more and more people, because that is going to bring some people in. And you look at, there was a time where for Hanna-Barbera, the Flintstones were actually the most popular franchise. Like, Scooby-Doo wasn't as big as the Flintstones. But you look at all those other properties and they've sort of died away, right? The Flintstones, the Jetsons, like a lot of that stuff, people know what it is, but it's not the same thing. And I actually think I think of all these different incarnations of being like a garden. There's this pop culture garden of Scooby, and you're planting all these seeds, and some of them grow up and some of them don't. And some of them they keep iterating because it worked. And I think you actually have to have that process, or else that's what will kill Scooby. And I think that you have to assume that if Scooby's going to be around for another 50 years, which probably will, they will have a version where they're grandparents. They'll have a version where they're passing the baton to other kids who are on the block. Like, they're going to do everything, and a lot of it we're not going to like. But I think that's part of the process, and I think it's healthy.
Yeah, we talked before about how there is a version of Scooby for everybody, and there's so many different iterations of it that everyone can find something, or some series or some movie that they like, and of course there's going to be stuff that people don't like. So yeah, Wendy, I cut you off before, and I'm sorry. What were you?
That's okay.
Say?
No, I was just going to say, just a quick side note on Zombie Island and the idea of what is the balance between the light and the dark, and how can you keep that intact so that we can do what Will just said, which is keep going, try different things, and what is the balance? I think that the balance, and we kind of touched on this in the first video that we did together, Zombie Island, I don't think would have worked as well if the zombies hadn't have turned out to be the good guys. I think that if every element in that movie had been the zombies are bad, the cat creatures are bad, everything is bad, everything is evil, we wouldn't have gotten that. Technically, I mean, as long as the gang wins in the end, yeah, good triumphs over evil. But I don't think it would be enough of that. By having the zombies, which are definitely the scariest part throughout the most of the film, by bringing that full circle at the end and saying, hey, you were afraid, but they were trying to help you because they were just innocent as well. And they were actually good guys like you were. And I think that that delivers such a powerful good triumphing over evil. And I think that is what you need in anything if you're going to balance a little bit of dark with the light. That keeps Scooby wholesome, where everyone can enjoy it. It is not inappropriate. Good triumphs over evil. You can't not enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. And I think Zombie Island is a great example of that, where if they had not made that twist at the end, I don't think it would have been as successful, because it would have been very, very dark, and to the point that not as enjoyable. I think if you watch something and you come away from it feeling like crap, it's maybe not good. Much better to have something where even if bad things happen and dark things happen, if you can walk away feeling good about it, then that's a winner. That's a winner. And I think if they keep that in mind with Scooby, I think that there is a lot of things that they can do. They can push a lot of boundaries, but I think that's the boundary that they need to not cross by completely eliminating that good versus evil, where where good triumphs in the end, and it needs to be kind of a pow. It can't just be like a little flip flop, we just fall over the finish line kind of thing. You have to like drive it home, which I feel like all of Scooby shows do. And I think as long as they keep that in mind, then yeah, maybe we're not going to love everything that they come up with, but at least then we can still say, okay, well, I don't like despise this, and I don't want to, like Frankenstein running in, through the village with a torch trying to like, hurt somebody for what they've done. I don't think that that'll be necessary.
Right.
Nikki, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question, so you can tell me that this is a whole other show. I don't have, I think Zombie Island's great, but I don't have any nostalgia for it because I didn't see it during the period. So I watched it more recently. Yeah, it's cool. It's very interesting. I understand why it's so popular. But I'm curious how you people feel about Return to Zombie Island.
I've not seen it. I just didn't want to. I heard that they undid some things, and I didn't want to see it. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. No.
Okay. That's what I just couldn't. It's like the case where the studios have this wonderful thing that was very good. They return to it and they upend it just for fun. And I didn't want to be a part of that.
And Nikki, you can touch on this too. When we asked shows every Saturday morning, and it's Scooby's Meddling Kids, and he does live shows. And I asked him one day, I said, Scott, what's your thought? Or somebody asked him, what's your thoughts on Return to Zombie Island? And he said, I had to turn it off halfway through. And our initial thoughts as fans are, because he didn't voice the characters, he's upset. And I would get that why he would be upset. But no, he was upset. And I think a lot more fans were upset, not about who was voicing the characters. I mean, me personally, and I know some other fans would have loved Scott to take back the role and some of the others to take back the roles they should have taken. But you go back on things that you've already done and try to make it funnier when it was dark and it was perfect, like, dark and light, and it balanced out well. And you try to go back to the island, you try to rename everything, and you try to make it where the cat creatures are silly and the zombies, and then, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, excuse me, but Velma was like, oh, I guess I must have got like knocked on the head or something. I forget what she said, but it was like, oh yeah, I guess the zombies were fake or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we doing that? You know, why can't we just say, you know, Velma could say, I try to get that out of my head. I try not to think about this island. I try not to think about that time, guys. That was, you know, that was hard. That was probably one of our hardest mysteries. And they could have left it at that. You know, you do look at Return to Zombie Island, and you know, they left a cat creature on the island, and supposedly that one was real. You know, and they try to leave it like that, where, oh yes, they are still real, and this is all going on. And so I'm thinking to myself, if you leave it like that, are we going back to Zombie Island again in the future? You know, I hope not. I hope you just end it right then and there, because to me, it's always hard to try to beat the originals. And when I go pick up a Scooby movie from Walmart when it first releases, and I come back home, I have to think to myself, okay, Cameron, don't disregard it. Just take it with a grain of salt and rewatch it. Because when you watch the first time, I'm a person, I have to go back and rewatch it the second time to try to get the nostalgic feelings and what's really going on. You know, like the Sword and the Scoop. I had to watch it 3 or 4 times before I actually really liked it, because sometimes when you go back and look at the art styles and look how things are portrayed, look how things are done, it makes more sense when you go back and watch it more and more and more and more. But Will, I like how you asked it. Will, did you see Return to Zombie Island?
I did. And I had a feeling that because I don't have such strong feelings about the original,
yeah,
I didn't have as strong feelings about Return. I didn't think it was great, but it didn't, you know, really bother me. But I had a feeling because I know how you feel about the original movie. I thought this might be the response, but I was interested to sort of hear more about what aspects of it, you know, make people crazy.
And like I said, I don't write it off as being the most terrible movie in the Scooby-Doo universe. But, you know, I mean, there were some cool things I like that they threw in there. But, you know, when you take something that's really serious and then you try to turn it into comedy, but yet I'm not talking about just different Scooby-Doo series. Those work. You try to do a funny one, okay. You do a darker one, okay. But when you do like a sequel, you know, like for example, take the live action movie Scooby-Doo and then Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. They kept the same. This is, like I said, this is my opinions. In my opinion, they kept the same styles and the same, like, you know, goofiness, but yet seriousness through both movies, and it worked even though they were sequels. So then you take Return to Zombie Island, and it's a sequel to, you know, Zombie Island, and then it's completely like blown out of the water and something completely different. I don't know what they were thinking when they wrote that, but I'm thinking to myself, if you would have taken it and made it more geared towards, you know, the monsters actually being real, you know, the darker elements that you did throw in there, maybe throwing it in this movie, I think it would have worked a little bit better. So I don't know. That's my thoughts. What are y'all's thoughts on it?
I didn't really like it. I feel like they didn't, if they would have stuck true to the original and just carried on the story, I would have enjoyed it more. And really, that's kind of what I was hoping that they would do going into it. So I've only seen it once, and that's just because I couldn't rewatch it.
Yeah, I think that I think Mike said this in the first panel, and I think he was right. I think the main problem with that film is that they kind of catfished us with the name.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sequel. That's the problem. That is what everyone was expecting. That is what the title implies, and it is anything but that. If that film was just another Scooby film and it didn't have that attachment by name, I don't think it would have been as bad. But they really misrepresented what they were going to do with that film. And I think it was 100% because they were hoping to bank on the fact that a lot of people really, really love the original. They love, you know, Zombie Island, especially if you watched it when it first came out. And it was a big deal because it was like the first major Scooby thing that had come out in so long, that even though it was so different than what we knew before, you still liked it. But yeah, they misrepresented what that film was going to be, and they should have just made it something new. They could have had almost the same story, but eliminated that attachment to the zombie island that we know, and it would have made for a much, much better viewing, because it just completely misrepresented what it was going to be.
Well, did you like Return to Zombie Island?
I thought it was pretty mediocre. I think that's actually a really good point, that if it wasn't tied to the sequel, then it probably would have been okay. But so no, I didn't love it. I didn't love it. And even though I don't have as strong feelings about the original, I would have enjoyed a more straight sequel as well. I think I'm interested in what they're doing in the movies right now, where they're playing with the notion of, is it real? Is there something supernatural, or is there not? And I think I like it. I want to see where it's going. I want to know why they're doing it, because they did the same thing with the 13 Ghosts sequel, which I liked that one. I actually thought that was pretty good, but they did the exact same thing at the end of that, where they sort of explained it all away, but maybe not. And I want to know why the last several movies, they've gone so far out of their way to acknowledge that there's episodes with real supernatural and explain it away, but maybe not.
I would love to see a Scooby Natural series. I think that would be really cool. I really love that. That's definitely my favorite crossover that they've ever done. And I think a series would be really cool.
I agree with you, Nikki. That would be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, Supernatural definitely had the same kind of incidental humor that the original Scooby series did. And I think that's the key to making it work. They're not playing it for laughs, but you're getting the laughs. They're playing it straight. They're playing it serious. And that's what makes it work. I'm a huge fan of the original Dark Shadows series from the 60s. And it's kind of ridiculous. And I hear a lot of fans and they criticize it so hard. And I'm like, how can you say that you love this out of one side of your mouth and you have nothing good to say about it? But it was very popular in its day, and it is still fairly popular now. And it worked for the same reason. They weren't playing it to be comedy. They were playing it straight. All of the characters were playing it to be serious. And yet you were getting this very incidental humor that covered up all of the bloopers and all of the mistakes and all of, these occasionally bad acting. And it all kind of balanced out. And I feel like both Scooby-Doo and Supernatural, very, very unique series in that they hit that point of, it's serious, but we've got incidental humor, and it just comes naturally. And it did make for a very good crossover between those two, because they were very similarly styled in how they were doing things. So yeah, that would be a good series for sure.
I don't know that we have any other topics to cover that I've sent you. So if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, we can.
Well, I did have one thing I thought would be a good ask. We talked about art styles for cartoons. What would you have an opinion on the art styles of the first and second movie, and then the Cartoon Network live action TV shows? I mean, the visuals of those. Would anyone have an opinion of how they say looked versus any other kind of show or movie? Does it make sense? I guess I will lead, and then
Sure.
in the first movie, they did it almost to death. One of my biggest problems with the first, well, I have many, but they bleached Freddie Prinze Jr.'s hair so hard it was breaking. So they were trying to make it that white blonde helmet hair that Fred had versus just making him like a blonde guy, which they fixed in the second one. But I mean, just the way their colors were bright. I love the way the Mystery Machine looked, the way they interpret that in real life. It was nice. It's like, I think only other movie I think, well, I don't know, did you see Dick Tracy, the old movie, the one with Warren Beatty? Did any of you all see that?
A very long time ago, yes, yeah.
But, you know, if you remember, it was styled out to be comic panels. Like the characters were dressed in solid, bright colors, and the backgrounds had their panel colors. Beautiful and very arty, and then me liking art, that made sense. But the way they did Scooby, when they turned to life, they didn't look at it as a cartoon. They took them and then they threw them in real life, pretty much, except for, anyway, I can't even talk about the scrappy aspect of the first movie. And you know what I'm talking about, Wendy. and for the record, just putting him outside of the van was not punishment enough. Not punishment enough. Am I?
Oh, that's a topic for another panel.
I know that's another panel, but
Please, let's do it.
but anyway, please talk about the visual looks of, and I forget, was it Robbie Amell that played Fred? Like, well, that was the only thing I didn't like about the TV things. They made Fred a brunette, and I'm like, why would you make Fred a brunette?
I asked him why on Twitter, and he
Oh,
told
you did?
me because he doesn't look good blonde.
Oh,
And I kind of felt like, well, you're not true to the character. So if you're not dyeing your hair blonde, maybe you shouldn't be playing Fred.
you playing a character? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that bad because I don't know if it's in the first one or the second one, but they do at some point have like a musical number and they all dress up like the original gang, and he's got a blonde wig on and he looks just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looks a lot better than Freddie Prinze Jr. did.
And he didn't have to dye his hair. He could have worn a
No.
wig if that was his
Yeah, you could have worn a
concern.
wig, but
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the movies. I think the movies are it's a real crapshoot. Some of that stuff is just real bad. Mostly the computer animated stuff for those monster dog things, rough.
oh,
The treatment
rough,
is crappy,
rough,
rough.
rough, rough.
But I mean, I like that. What's the name of the island that they go to? The party
Yeah.
island. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's such a 2001, whatever year that was. Like, it's such a time capsule for the early 2000s that it's kind of funny. But I like some of the set design, and I like the villains that are done in that aren't computer animated. Like, I remember the Black Knight, I kind of dug, but some of the ones that were very animated, and I'm kind of switching between the first and the second one, like the Tar Monster, I didn't like. 10,000 Volt Ghost, I didn't like that. They just didn't work as well. So real crapshoot. But when it comes to live action, the one, I don't know how this opinion will land, but the live action one I like the most is actually the puppet one. I thought the puppet one was really good. I really dug the puppet one.
The mystery
I
map.
don't know if I've seen that.
The mystery
I've
map.
not
Yeah.
seen that.
Yep.
No.
I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah. It wasn't bad.
Were they like Muppet looking puppets or
Yeah,
more
they're Muppets.
puppet looking?
And I guess from an art direct, like if you think from an art direction, like if I think of all the live action things, the movie's really inconsistent. I actually didn't watch all those made for TV movies. I have a sense of what they look like, but I think the art direction for that Muppet puppet version is pretty good. They did a lot of really clever things. It looks really nice. You might not love all the choices, and the story is really silly, but I like it.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of. I mean, I am a fan, but I wasn't really crazy about the very first Scooby-Doo movie in 2002.
I wasn't
for a
either.
lot of the reasons. Number one, and people are going to disagree with me on this, but you know, I didn't like, and y'all know this, but the treatment of Scrappy, and here's how it goes along with art. Let me say how it goes along with art. When you take a cartoon character such as Scrappy-Doo And it's a touchy subject because a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't like him. I personally love Scrappy. I grew up watching Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. But then when you take him and you turn him into this villainous monster where he's getting larger and larger and larger at the end, to me, it was like, it was too much. It didn't work. You know, if he was like, okay, take for example, if people still wanted to keep him as, you know, James Gunn wanted to still keep him as the villain, but he still could have stayed in his like art style, because the way that they did the art style Scooby and Scrappy, I loved. I thought it was absolutely incredible. But then when you started taking him and started making him where he started getting larger and he was like, you know, rampaging through the people and stuff like that, to me it was just like too forced. You know, and so that's some of the stuff I disliked. I'm with Will. Those dog looking monsters, I wasn't really big fans of those. I was like, what are they trying to do? You know, I just did not like that. I will say though, like in the very beginning when they're solving the case of the Luna ghost, I love how they had the original outfits on, and how Pamela Anderson drives the mystery machine through and steps out. And then, you know, she walks up to the gang, and I love them. I think that because like they're standing the way like they're supposed to, like the original ones, like Velma has her hands behind her back and Daphne has her hands on her hip. And then Shaggy's just standing there with, you know, and then it's cool. They're all sitting and looking like the original Where Are You? Now jump forward into Scooby-Doo 2 Monster Unleashed. I loved it. I absolutely thought it was a great movie. I love the monsters and how the monsters looked. You know, I did a edit on my Scooby-Doo page like a week or so ago between the original the original Black Knight Ghost from Where Are You and the Scooby-Doo 2 Black Knight Ghost. And I was asking people like, hey, which one would you choose? Which one's your favorite? And I was really shocked. A lot more people went with the movie version than they did the original version, because they said the movie version looked a little bit more scarier and a little bit more edgy. Like if you were going into a fight with either Black Knight Ghost, the one in the movie just kind of gives you the chills. Like he, you know, when he broke down the wall and on the news report or the newsroom on the movie, and he said, you know, this show's canceled. It kind of gives you a little bit of the chills, you know. I love how they took all the old monsters from the Scooby-Doo show and Where Are You and brought them onto the movie. The one thing I will say though, and it hasn't been talked about a lot, but I'm going to be doing a segment on it, is the costumes in the museum. There was so many costumes of the old villains in the Scooby-Doo museum that I thought, wow, why didn't we explore those more? Because if you look in the background, you can see the Wolfman, you can see the Ghost Clown, you can see the Warlock of Wimbledon. He's on there. I thought that was really cool. So you're seeing all these old villains in there, and they pick certain ones. And so I'm thinking to myself, whoever designed those costumes for the movie, kudos to them. They looked incredible, like Chickenstein and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But when I'm thinking about it, when you kind of gave that eerie green glow to the monsters, I'm thinking to myself, what if you reversed it a little bit? What if you didn't make them so much animated in the movie? What if you made them a little bit more darker? You know what I mean? Like, for example, take the Skeleton Men. You take the Skeleton Men from the old Scooby-Doo show and the cartoon version, and they were a little bit more darker and mysterious in the show. And then you take them in the Scooby-Doo 2, the movie, they're so silly and bumping into each other and stuff like that. So, you know, like I said, you start looking at those styles and how they're bringing them up. And especially like for the gang, Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, I love how they didn't keep those styles. How, like you said, they kind of grew up a little bit more. They started Mystery Incorporated Agency. They actually had like their own little like I don't know if y'all did or not, but I loved their little headquarters. It was like so cool. And like how they had all like the mystery machine and the mystery machine limo in the very beginning when it pulled up. It was just so many cool elements. And I love the styles. Like Daphne, she had you know, she always had like her you know, her pink and purple outfits, and then Velma had like her vest. And then like in the movie, I don't remember, Trevor brought it up, she had like that super tight like it
was Daphne's outfit. It was Daphne's that she loaned her.
Yes, it was Daphne's, and so she loaned it to Velma, and then and then Scooby wore a bow tie. So there were so many elements that were thrown into it. So I think when you're taking the live action movies, I think number 2 stands out tremendously. Now, when you go to the Cartoon Network ones, I think the CGI animation was a little bit cheesy. Now, granted, it was Cartoon Network. I know they didn't have that big of a budget. I know they had to do what they could. Did I love the movies? Yeah, I love the movies. I think they were great. I think Velma and Fred were casted a little bit, not the best, in my opinion. People can disagree with me. But, to me, I didn't feel like the girl playing Velma and the guy playing Freddy and the Scooby-Doo one and the Scooby-Doo Mystery Begins, those movies from Cartoon Network, I just really didn't feel like they captured the character. Now, like I said, people may disagree with me on that. I just think that, Robbie, he says, oh, well, I don't really look good as a blonde. Then don't play Fred then. Fred's a blonde. You know what I mean? It's like taking Velma and giving her long red hair like Daphne. It's like, no, that wouldn't work. You're copying Daphne. You know what I mean? So you're taking elements and you're trying to change them. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you can change certain things, but you can't change what makes the character the character. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, that's all my opinions on that.
I wasn't a huge fan of the live action movies. I did think the second one was the best one, but I do prefer Scooby to be animated.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since I've seen the first 2. I remember not loving them, but to be honest, I think that was just more me not liking the idea of taking a cartoon and making it live action. Like Nikki said, I would much prefer just stick with the animation. I love animation, and it's getting to be a lost art, to tie in the backgrounds again. Like Will said at the beginning, some of those Hanna-Barbera artists that did those amazing backgrounds, they worked for Walt Disney. And Hanna-Barbera and Disney, if you watch those old films and shows and you pay attention to the detail, I mean, those backgrounds belong in art galleries and museums. Those are fine art pieces. And it's really a shame that if you stop somebody on the street and said, hey, do you know Walt Paraguay? Do you know who that is? And they'd be like, no, I don't know who that is. And he worked for both Disney and did backgrounds for Scooby. My opinion, some of the best background art in the original series, Night of Fright is No Delight, Hassle in the Castle, and Which is Which, Walt Paraguay was part of the group of artists that created those, and they're amazing. And I'm sad that is getting to be not a thing anymore, and that people are not. Yeah, look at like that. That's I would hang that on my wall before I would buy anything that I've seen in galleries today. Not that there's anything wrong with what's in the galleries today. There lots of stuff is beautiful too, but the fact that those are not considered fine art is a travesty to me. So for that reason alone, I will always prefer some form of animation to making something live action. I actually watched those Cartoon Network ones for the first time right before our first panel because there were questions about it and I hadn't seen them yet. And I agree. I think if you're going to play Fred, be willing to go blonde. I mean, if Cesar Romero can cover his mustache with grease paint to play the Joker for 3 seasons on Batman in 1966, you can put on a blonde wig for 2 movies is what I'm saying. Yeah. However, having said that, I think it's because, like what Cam said, I didn't love the casting of either Freddy or Velma. I feel like the characterization of the character was off for both of them and in like a negative way. I really, really enjoyed the movies more than I thought I would, but I wasn't watching them as Scooby films because of that mischaracterization of the actors. And therefore, I found that I was surprisingly not as bothered by the hair color as what I expected to be. Like initially, that's why I didn't watch it, is I thought, like, I mean, honestly, like you don't look anything like what you're supposed to. But what is the name of the actor that plays Shaggy? Nick Palace or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he was amazing. He looked amazing. He sounded amazing. He captured Shaggy's character and kind of built on it in a way that we have never seen, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Gave him much more like humanity. That's not quite the right word, but like I really felt him as the character. Daphne was a bit of a non-event for me. She was fine. I didn't have a problem with her. It's not that she was badly cast or good, like well cast. It was just kind of there. But the Velma especially, like it was just such like a rough edge that just rubbed me the wrong way. And Freddie kind of had that same, like that just that roughness to them that I was like, you don't need that. The original series proved that you don't need that. Not all teenagers have that streak, you know? And I think that's kind of what they were pushing with those is that, oh yeah, it's typical teenage behavior. Well, maybe it's typical for you, but it's not typical for everyone. And it's not a good kind of typical, you know? Freddie's friends with the bully on the bus. And yes, kudos to him. Eventually he tells them to stop, but he didn't at first. Original Freddie wouldn't have put up with that for 2 seconds. At all. And I don't think so anyway. There's no way that he would have allowed that. But I did enjoy them. The original movies though, the live action ones, I didn't love the casting of anyone except for Matthew Lillard was quite good. And Daphne's outfit really bothered me. I am definitely someone who it would be annoying to watch movies and TV with me because half the time I am so distracted by the background, by the costumes, by the jewelry and the makeup that don't ask me what's actually going on in the story because there's a very good chance that I don't know because I've been paying attention to everything else. So oddly enough, I thought it was a strange choice to give Daphne a very dated outfit. To me, Daphne in those original live action, that screamed 1970. To me, way more than like what we talked about at the beginning where her original outfit is, it fits in the 70s, but it also fits in the 2000s. It's kind of timeless. And I thought it was a very interesting choice to date her in such a more modern film and to make her almost unrecognizable to me. You know, if they didn't consistently keep Shaggy looking the way that he looks, I feel like sometimes you'd be like, what is this? I don't recognize this as Scooby-Doo. This is something different.
Yeah.
I remember there was also, Nikki, help me out here, but there was also another live action one. Wasn't it about just Daphne and Velma? Am I correct?
There was. I have not seen that one yet. I'm kind of afraid to watch it.
I haven't either, and I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan. I haven't even watched it, but there was a thing floating around Twitter where it was like the biggest downgrade in history, and it had like Velma from like the last Scooby-Doo movies, and then the Cartoon Network one, and then the Daphne and Velma ones. And I think we've all mentioned this. It's like, you know, they've kind of gone downhill with casting. It's like they've taken these characters that are not willing to conform and to really like jump into these characters and they bring them on, and you know, it's like why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Like I look at Matthew Lillard. I love Matthew Lillard. I think he played a great Shaggy in the live action movies, and you know, in order to get the voice that he wanted, he had to scream at the top of his lungs to basically break his voice down to become Shaggy. If that doesn't scream hard work and determination to become a character right there, then I don't know what does. So when you get these characters that are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to playing Velma, or I'm going to playing Daphne, and it's like they're acting like themselves and not really like the character, then I've got a problem. You know, I don't know if y'all disagree with me or agree with me on that, but to me, it just bugs the crap out of me. So, you know, when I'm watching movies and when I see these characters that are not acting like, you know, are not even acting, sounding, you know what I mean? Like, and I know we talked about this already, but like, take, for example, Scoob, the voice actors, you know what I mean? It really, when watching the movie, it just really offset me, because when I'm listening to these voice actors, they sound nothing like the characters. And granted, I know that there's going to be different voices, but they sound like they were just talking normal. Like Tracy Morgan sound like he was just talking like every day when he was playing Captain Caveman. And it drove me nuts. I'm thinking to myself, Captain Caveman's so goofy and silly, and he, but he didn't even sound like him. So I think when you're talking about, these characters that have been around for 50 years, I'm thinking to myself, no, you don't need to try to be like yourself in real life. You need to be more like this character. If you can't be like this character, then don't take the job to try to play and portray these characters, because it really does upset fans, And I think that's why some of the live action stuff hasn't really gone over well and that's what I'm seeing. So.
And we talked about it before that, the voice actors that have been doing these characters, they put their heart and soul into it. And then you bring in new actors that are doing it for the first time, and they just don't have that. They don't have that connection to the characters. So you're not going to feel the connection between the voice and the character.
I look at, the people that play the cartoon characters, Great Delisle, and Mindy Cohn and Matthew. I know Mindy's not playing Velma now, but you know what I mean? These people that have voiced Scooby-Doo, you ask them any question about the characters, they can go into depth. I mean, honestly, you ask Frank Welker, and he could go into super depth about, Scooby-Doo or Dynamite or whatever cartoon character you're talking about, because he understands the history of them. Great Delisle, she always is posting about Daphne. She understands Daphne's character. And you're right, you get these certain people in there. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but you take some of these new people like Zac Efron and Gina Rodriguez, you ask them about Fred or Velma and the history about the character and what the character really stands for. I don't think they could give you a clear answer about the character, and that's a little frustrating, because for us fans, I know it's hard. So I don't know. To me, that's sometimes it's a little bit off-putting.
So I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to discuss.
I would like to say I'd like to do this again for some other reason. That would be
well. We talked about the Scrappy one, so that's going to be an interesting one.
I think Cam and I will be on the opposite sides. If we had the old school desk, the debate, it'll be the for and against. I'll be prepared. I even have a Venn. I'll have a Venn diagram.
We might need a referee for that one.
For the record, I did enjoy the Christmas episode at the orphanage. I think when they were first introducing Scrappy. Remember?
Nutcracker Scoob?
Yes.
Yeah.
That one was tolerable. Anyway, well, we don't have time for this.
We got to save it for that panel.
No, but...
All right. So we are going to wrap this up. I mean, I've had a lot of fun talking about Scooby. I know we've kind of gotten off track from the art and talked about other stuff, but it works. But before we totally end this, I would like you guys to let me know where to find you on social media. So we'll start with you.
Sure. At Davenport Will Draw on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Think just those three right now. Maybe Reddit too.
All right, Trevor.
You can only find me on Instagram at Funky Philosophy Fridays, but all the sounds are F's. So FUNKY FILOSOFY Fridays. Yeah. So
Wendy?
Pretty much.
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Wendy Brydge, Bridge with a Y. And I'm actually working on a Scooby-Doo painting right now. So if anyone's interested, come and take a peek as that comes together. Or I'm at Wendy Loves Jesus on pretty much any other social media, Twitter, my blog, Google me, come say hi.
Cameron.
You can find me at Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now I'm on YouTube. So pop over, say hi. I love to talk Scooby-Doo with anybody.
Awesome. And I can be found at ScoobyAddicts.com, and all the links for my social media pages are on the website. So that's it for this episode. So
thank you, Nikki. This was great.
Thanks for having us,
yeah,
Nikki.
it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
That wraps up another mystery. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. Thank you for watching the Scooby Panel, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A very special thank you to artist and Scooby fan Will Davenport, pop artist and Scooby fan Trevor Hawkins, Scooby-Doo interior decorator Cameron Bates, and artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy Brydge. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's page, Scooby's Meddling Kids with Scott Innes on Facebook. Art by Will Davenport. Video editing by Mike Burns. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join me next time for our discussion on the controversy of Scooby-Doo.